I have been on the look for the right excavator for over a year and a half now, and I've been looking for one that's somewhere right around 15,000 pounds, maybe 60 to 65 horsepower, and something that will climb the hills and get where it needs to get to cut in new trails, thin trees when needed, stack rocks, and many other things. And with a combination of crazy prices and simple unavailability, it has taken us a long time to find one. In spite of all of the uncertainty around us, an excavator is still something we have to have here at the ranch, but we were not interested in buying a brand new $150,000 excavator. So for that reason, it has taken a little while to find just the right excavator, but last week we found one. I suppose the downside to this excavator is that it needs a little bit of work. It was involved in some sort of a collision where components on the excavator were damaged. For that reason, I was able to get it for less than half of its value, but it's going to cost me some money to get it working. Some of the repairs required on this excavator will be a little bit of fabrication and a lot of welding. I've needed just such an excuse to cut down this big orange trailer that I've used for a storage container for my welder and some tools for the last few years, but it takes up too much space and it's time for it to go. My goal is to remove everything except for the belly pan, trailer axle, and suspension. In order to cut this down and to make it work for what I need, I'm going to cut out basically all of the structure and just keep the belly pan. Then I will weld back some C-channel and then see if I can't find a better center of gravity for the welder so this trailer's not so heavy and difficult to move around. I ran around town and I tracked down all the parts that I needed to connect the 100-pound tank to the gas line that I installed. And I've had a number of questions about the regulators and also about why I put the propane tanks here. And the standard pressure in a propane tank, I believe, is right around 150 psi. So from there, this first regulator that I'm going to install here in just a second drops the pressure down to 10 psi. Then it goes across the back of the shop to the generator, and there's a second regulator that reduces that pressure to somewhere between 9 and 13 inches of water column, which is probably like 1/8 of a pound of pressure maybe. And then you're good from that point. But the other reason I put this here was serviceability. If I have to rotate these tanks out and get them filled, I didn't want to have to carry a propane tank this heavy all the way back behind there. So it's just kind of ease of access. But I'm going to go ahead and get that regulator hooked up and tied in. And then I'm going to check for leaks with soap and water. We as a family are finding that we're not burning anywhere near as much firewood as we thought we would. The house is insulated well enough, and that wood stove burns good enough that we're only going through maybe 2 cords a winter. As Cedar and I were splitting wood the other day, I told her we should condense this firewood pile right here and use the space for something else. Maybe another sauna. The first sauna I built, I never could get it a whole lot hotter than about 155 degrees, and it just wasn't built very well. But I recognized the benefits of using a sauna at that time. Because we don't have a whole lot of level ground around here. Every time something goes away, there's always an idea that pops up into my head. Oftentimes, Cedar has a perspective that I didn't take into consideration. We can never go wrong by having too much firewood around here, especially once we get the shop drywall hung and insulated. But if there's also a way to condense what we use and make room for something that we would use on a daily basis, this is probably something we should explore. I am going to load all of the steel that I just cut off this trailer onto the back of my dually, run down to the scrap yard, sell them my old steel, see if I can find enough scrap steel to finish this thing. But I want to build a legit welding trailer. And I'm tired of this little orange trailer taking up so much space. Reed and Callie don't ask for a whole lot, but they would love to be able to play basketball without any restrictions. My hope is to cut this thing down to where it's small enough that I could roll it back in the corner in the shop at some point and just kind of keep it out of the way. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I probably cut 300, 400 pounds of steel off this thing. I'm hoping I can find the scraps to build a nice trailer that will have a toolbox where I can keep my rod in it. I can keep a helmet in it. But it also needs to be small enough that it can be moved around with the four-wheeler. So I almost bought a completely new trailer axle and was going to build it from scratch, and I felt like that was kind of a waste. And so this is going to be it. I'm going to have to do some more fabricating, but this little trailer should be fine. I just sold all that steel for $28. Me and Ruby are going to the gas station. It's called brown food, people. It's kept warm with a light bulb. By the way, that's one of my favorite ways to use my seatbelt. Opening a bottle of squirt. Back when Ruger and I, the dog we had a few years back, would come up to work on the house, we would stop at the gas station. I'd get whatever I needed, and he'd end up with a corn dog. Although she can be a little bit picky, Ruby has picked up where Ruger left off. Two completely different dogs, but both very important to their owner in their own special ways. Ruby gets a corn dog, I get a Mexican squirt. We're both happy for a minute. About the time that I thought I should go inside and get my glasses for a little eye protection. My buddy Mark showed up, we talked for a little bit, then I finally got back on the trailer. And I'm really trying to do this in my spare time, and it feels like it's taking forever, but let me tell you a little bit more about this excavator. We bought the excavator sight unseen, but I had been watching it online for about 2 months before it went to that auction. It was for sale at a dealership about 2,000 miles away, and about 10 days ago I finally called to learn a little bit more about the excavator. When I talked to the salesman at the dealership, he told me I could make an offer on it, but that they had the excavator scheduled to go to auction, and I would probably be able to get a better deal through that auction. So that's what I did. Okay, now that I have everything connected with the gas lines, I'm going to soap everything down with just some soapy water and open the tank up and just check for any obvious leaks. I've already done this once before, but I'm going to check these last few connections that I've made some changes to and make sure we're good. All right, I just found a tiny leak, and this is what it looks like when the bubbles are doing their job. And this is on the high pressure side, which is somewhere around 150 PSI. And by the way, it's also 12 degrees outside, so everything's freezing. But there's a tiny leak right there. I'm just gonna snug that up real quick, but I'm gonna go check the generator connection as well. Okay, I did end up having one little tiny leak on the high side right here, which is an easy fix. I'll have to take that apart, put some more pipe dope on there and snug it up a little bit more. So the excavator is a steel-tracked excavator that weighs right at 15,000 pounds, and it should be perfect for what we need. It doesn't have a counterweight hanging off the back of it. That actually seems to be better on the hillsides. Maybe I wouldn't be able to lift up as much wood or rocks or something like that, but in exchange, it's a little easier to maneuver, and the track width is definitely more stable. There is a wood chipping attachment that goes on the end of the boom on an excavator, and an attachment like that with my excavator would turn any unwanted trees or wood into wood chips in minutes. If I wasn't concerned about having another 40 years of firewood in the form of maple trees, maybe we would invest in one of those chippers that mounts on the end of the boom of an excavator, but I don't know how safe that would be on our hillside. Having the boom up in the air like that with a heavy attachment on the end of it is probably not the best thing to do. But I will use the excavator to pull any unwanted trees out of the ground and stack them in a way where we can turn it into firewood so we can keep any burning to a minimum this year. Anyway, I'm getting super excited to have an excavator sitting around here. I just checked the hour meter on this Hobart welder, and I've put about 650 hours on it in the last 4 years. When I was building the house, I would use it for any power needs, and then if I happened to have a need to weld anything, because it is a welder generator, I'm able to do that without any issues, but I'm definitely not the best arc welder. Initially, the plan was to take the leaf springs and any spring mounts and just hard mount the trailer axle right to the center of this frame that I built. But as the project continued to drag on, I decided I just needed to get it finished so I can get focused on other things, and then if later on we decide to change it, we can change it. The Hobart welder generator has a Kohler motor in it, and I believe it's somewhere around a 24 horsepower motor. It is a gasoline engine. If I was going to complain about something, it would probably be that. I wish I had a diesel welder generator, but for the price, this thing has been a lifesaver, and I'm certain we will continue to use it all around the place, so it needs to be easily maneuverable. We had a little bit of snow blow through, and now it's bone chilling cold. Single digit cold this time of the morning, which can be hard on the fingers. And while I have other projects that I could be working on, like the new plow truck, I'm nervous that we're not going to need it a whole lot more the rest of this year. And that's not good. We've gotten probably a third to maybe half of the snow that we should have gotten. And I know that winter's not over and maybe we'll get some more. But year after year after year of weather like this begins to add up. Over a decade ago, there was a fire that got out of control up here, and it burned a lot of trees. And I do not want that to happen here at our place. Part of the reason we put the effort into the thinning of the trees that we have is just for that reason. So this video will likely end up being part 1 on the welding trailer improvement series, and I'm sure I'll revisit this a few more times before I'm totally satisfied with the welding trailer. But in the meantime, it's accessible, it's smaller, it's usable. When the excavator shows up next week, it's ready to go. And we have another situation where maybe it would have been better to buy a new trailer axle and just build a trailer from scratch, but I got rid of the orange trailer. As far as my wife is concerned, that's a win. I don't think I've ever put air in the tires in the 4+ years that I've owned this little trailer. And I'm sure now that I've said that, they'll go flat, but it should get the job done. I don't like my leads being out in the sun, and for that reason I picked up a little plastic weatherproof toolbox, and I will drill a couple holes in the back of this box, run the leads through it, so when I'm done with the job I can simply put the leads back in the box and they'll be protected from the weather. I suppose a guy's legacy at the end of his life is going to be what he leaves behind, and a good part of that, in my case, is going to be tools. I'm sure my kids and grandkids are going to be grateful when I start buying some higher quality stuff. A couple of months back, I bought me an 8-inch vise down at the Farm and Ranch supply store. And if I remember correctly, it was under $200. But it was better suited as a boat anchor, in my opinion. I am not in love with this vise. I'm probably going to have to find an old vintage Wilton or something like that that I can restore to get the vise that I'll be happy with. I would love to have one of the brand new Wilton machinist vices, but I may have to save for a couple of months for that one. So on the one hand, I got a vise mounted on the welding trailer. On the other hand, I got that vise out of my shop. I'm going to end up taking probably 18 inches out of this tongue and then welding it back together, and then that's about all I'm going to do with it until the snow melts. I didn't quite finish the little welding trailer last night because my buddy Cody showed up, and we continued working on the standby generator, and we have just about everything done. I have to run down and pick up a Wi-Fi booster tomorrow. And then I think tomorrow afternoon, Nick's going to show up, and we're going to take her on the inaugural voyage, I'm pretty sure. So this little trailer, I'm going to take a couple of feet out of that tongue. I'm not crazy about how far back that trailer axle is sitting, so we may remove those leaf springs and find a little bit better center of gravity with this trailer and get it a little closer to the ground. But for the upcoming project, for my big project that's hopefully going to show up at the end of next week, the welding trailer is ready to go. Like I said, I'm going to take a little bit of length out of that tongue, and then it's just going to be much easier to maneuver around after that. So hopefully our next video coming up will be the backup generator online, and I've got a good sized project that I've been looking forward to for probably close to a year now, and I can't wait for it to show up, that's for sure.